Let's come share this screen. Okay, so I just want to play through this little segment again. Since we last met, I'm ending up working a lot more in this composition than I would be normally working in the big file, because normally you work in the main folder, the main composition, and you have the audio with it. So I just literally cut and trimmed the audio and brought it into here. So that's what this is. So I found the exact starting place of the composition. Basically, I went in here. This is the exact starting place of the composition. So then I just copy pasted this, option left bracket to make it start there, and then I cut that and pasted it into the software, or into the other composition. So into this actual composition is the audio is. So right now I'm getting double audio. The audio is coming out of this green track of the song, but I also have audio in the background of the first poem that is playing. So if I hit play now, it's unusually loud, and the reason is that you have those two audios playing. So basically, if you take the audio track into the other composition to work it, I just go ahead and turn off the audio here so that it's not playing in your final project. But what that does mean is that I can listen here, or I can go into the actual composition by double clicking and still see what's happening. I don't get the scroll because that's all happening on the outside thing, but my
Striped.
give it a second. But basically we can then hear and actually line things with timing in here. The reason this is going to be important is basically because, one second, let me adjust this. I don't know why I didn't do that yet. Nope. All right. Why Zoom? Okay, great. So basically, we have it based in both areas so that we can work with it, but it won't add to the audio in the other area. So the reason that it's important in this one is because the things like the ambulance are going to need to go behind people on bikes and the buildings and all this. Like the ambulance is going to have to go behind certain things. And so I need to make sure I can't do that on top of the composition. So if I'm just layering them together in that composition, I'm not going to be able to do it. So to get the ambulance to go past the upstage side, I'll need to move that on screen. So we'll see what that looks like. It may also be that I wait till she's off screen and then the ambulance comes past in front of her so that we can see that. So I'm going to go back to this. I did let this load, I thought, so that we wouldn't have to wait forever to watch it. Okay, just so that we can all see. Let me make this full. See, this is what we're looking at in the actual main composition.
Striped pants. Crazy dance.
Give it a second to catch up. I'm going to go back so we can see that again. 1 second.
Last chance. Ambulance.
Okay, so.
Striped pants. Crazy dance.
That's better.
Last chance.
So the ambulance has to kind of come flying out here, right? So trying to think, I'll probably want it to go behind her. So I want to make sure that we don't end up having weird overlap. So I'm going to find the starting point of where I want to start moving.
Last chance.
So I wanted to start moving on last chance. So here, and I'm going to note that I have all three flowers here. So when I go into my composition to work, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the spot where I am going to be framed. So this is kind of where we're at. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that we can see this space. All right, so the ambulance is in. We're going to go into our spot. All right, I was working future things. Okay, so the doctor we're going to need the scarf. And the ambulance. What did I call it? Did I not call it anything? Oh, I might not have dropped it in because we created it, didn't we? Give me 1 second. Let me drop it in. There we go. So just drag and drop, and that comes into here. Then I'm going to grab that. I'm going to grab the doctor. I'm going to grab scarf 1 and scarf 2, and I'm going to bring those all into the composition at that point. So let's see, crazy pants we can close. We're done working with. We're done working with the other as well. So what we're going to do, sometimes if you have things that are really complicated and you don't want to mess them up accidentally by selecting a bunch of layers and then editing them and then moving or changing something, you can just use the lock here, and then that means you can't edit them. So you can't select them, you can't change them. You can open them to look inside so you can see what's there, but if you try to grab a keyframe or something, it won't. But that's kind of nice, because if you get reminded that it doesn't work, awesome, that's fine, you can unclick it. But if you accidentally change something you weren't intending to, that can be very frustrating. So doctor and ambulance. First of all, we want to scale them a little better so that they're looking like they're a little bit closer to the camera. So I'm going to make everybody, actually, let's start with the ambulance first. Let's set the size of the ambulance. And the top layer. Let me see. There we go. It's like, why am I not seeing that change? Okay. So placement wise, remember we'll be seeing, oh, actually, let's also do real quick. Let's just find somebody who's got our drop shadow. We're going to command copy, and we're going to apply our drop shadow to all our things. So command V or control V, depending on whatever you're doing, just to make sure that we have it. I'm going to turn off the doctor and just have the ambulance, so I can just animate that right now. So I think I'm going to go even a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to move it off. And I want it to feel like it's coming from up here. So maybe actually I'll start it smaller and then it'll get bigger as it's going by. I like that. So let's go like 200. Okay, 20%, 200, please. Thank you. I'm going to move that up and over. All right, we're going to rotate it so it looks like it's actually driving in that direction. And what this may mean is that we may need to get a little bit further in our video before we bring on the ambulance, because right now the way it's going to work, so let's see. So we're moving our composition situated here, and we're moving it over to here. Give us a second while it loads, bear with.
Question as this is loading.
Yeah, what's up?
So I remember you showing on the timeline that there could be like little folders that contain like other like segments. How do you do that again?
On the timeline?
Yes.
So basically those are compositions. So
Okay.
you can put a composition into another composition. So you can nest them. Think of it like, what's it called?
Like different scenes within the movie?
Yeah, but more like Inception. There you go, that terrible movie. There's actually an okay movie. I just, Rick and Morty's take on it is hilarious. But anyway, so basically think of it like Inception. So a composition inside of a composition. So basically when you think about it, the biker person is a composition, and that's just the wheels turning and the person. Then when I put that composition into here, those things still happen in the same time it would take in the other composition. So basically I'm just looping it indefinitely. In that case, I think I just set the wheels from the beginning of that composition to the end to rotate 5 times or something like that, whatever looked realistic while it was moving.
Okay.
So with that in mind, that's kind of how you decide when you're, oh, did I stop this? Each composition can be inside. So anytime you want to affect something without affecting other things, or like if you want to add a drop shadow. So for instance, I wanted to add a drop shadow to all the clouds in one of the compositions I was working in, but I didn't want to add one individually to each one because I didn't want, when they overlap, I didn't want there to be drop shadow cloud on cloud. If you put them all in the same composition and then you add drop shadow to that composition, when they overlap, there wouldn't be because it's only adding it to the actual composition. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's anytime you run into something, like I could have the wheels out here, but also by putting things in different compositions, I can work on those things individually as opposed to having to do all of it at once or deal with all the layers in one folder, right? Because basically this is the opening scene, the second scene. If this has 50 layers in it and this has 50 layers in it, this thing would be just ginormous by the time I was done with it. So any way you can, and basically when you think about it, you're only going to work one scene at a time, so then you can double click into that composition. Any changes you make in a composition, if it's used in another one, it will update it automatically, jumping back and forth between them, because it's again referencing that old file. Cool.
Okay,
cool. So in here, let me jump to my spy already loaded. Trying to think of the ambulance when it needs to start. So I kind of wanted to start by there. And so I think what I'm going to need to do is I'm just going to need to change what this understanding of this is. So I'm going to just continue to move this frame along because I want to be able to bring in the ambulance. I can even go a little bit lower because I know we're gonna mask the edge of it, but basically I still want to be able to see more of the top of this because I think it's more interesting at the moment than the bottom of it, because there's not much city in the bottom. So if we're looking at it like that, now that I've moved it, it's going to change my speeds here and here, so I am going to have to load this again. But now I know that by the time they mention the ambulance, I can load it right off the screen and then bring it on. Same as like this guy isn't loaded until now because that he's about to start jumping, or the bike's about to start turning. So it only loads when you need it.
Last chance. And
so then
ambulance.
So I think I want to be, let me think. I'm going to change my understanding of the ending. I want this just to have gotten, I don't want to see the building yet because I want the ambulance to clear before I get to the building. So basically I'm going to have it still move, but it'll move slower.
Ambulance.
Ooh, I don't like how that did that. So let's make that a little bigger. We need to see the whole thing.
Last chance.
Let's even move these up a little bit so that it's, by the time we get there, we're there.
Last chance.
I think what I need to do is not make these interpolation. I need to make them not Bezier. I need them linear, which means that they're not going to slow down as it gets to that point and then slow down as it's leaving that point. It's going to just run in real time to that point. So it's going to have to reload. A lot of times when I'm working on compositions or animations, I will have a second project going at the same time. So this time that I'm drinking coffee, I would usually switch to another project, have one headphone in, mute it while it's loading, and then come back to it. Mute it while it's loading, and then come back to it when I need it. Just because sometimes it takes forever to load, and you don't want to kill your entire day by waiting for loading. Okay, so let's see what this looks like now so far.
Yes.
I keep starting right before. Bear with.
Last chance. Ambulance.
Okay, so I'm hating that. So I think what I want to do is I want to make these back to what they were, which I'm going to undo, and I'm going to get rid of this. And we're going to make this be, let's see, over to the building. Actually, I'm just going to go over till she's barely in the corner, because then we'll have just a little bit, not too much so we don't lose the top. Keep that there. All right, let's see what that looks like.
Pants. Pants.
give it a second to load. But basically what we'll do is we'll get this moment figured out, have the ambulance move through, and then we'll figure out the movement to the next part. So that'll give us a little bit of traveling time as we're moving from one to one. So the other nice thing about editing entire compositions, the reason if I had this guy in this same thing in the composition I'm currently in, instead of being in this composition, anytime I try to move the background, I'll have to move that character at the same exact rate or it'll look weird. If I move it in a composition, it will move in the exact same rate as it was doing in the composition in the first place. Does that make sense also? So basically you're adding in, you're making it a little bit easier on yourself because you don't want to have to follow the movement of every single thing as you go. Okay, here we go.
Last chance.
Why was that so abrupt? It should give me an easing into that.
Last.
Oh, let's get rid of that then. I'm just gonna go right in front of it and I'm going to, where I want it, I'm gonna get rid of this movement. Go to that keyframe and then I'll replace it. Sometimes things get a little weird if you try editing them internally. So I'm just gonna legit grab the whole thing and just move it to where I want it for that last spot so that it doesn't even question where it's supposed to be headed. Now it knows it's going there. So let's see what that looks like.
Last chance. Ambulance.
Okay, so there we go. So the ambulance, so last chance is the characters with the, that I don't have, I never got them yet. So the characters that are actually here that are carrying the guy on the, or the person on the stretcher. So the two persons carrying it. So I'm going to have to get those. I'm not going to do that right this second, but they'll be like kind of walking here. So what I want to do is I'm going to give myself a placeholder because I want to keep working on this. But imagine we'll have them there when it says last chance. As the ambulance goes past it, as soon as it goes past it, they'll be gone. I'll just like delete them so that it looks like they're running this way. And then as the ambulance passes them, they'll just be gone and the ambulance will continue off. So that's what I'm gonna do for this. So let's actually do the ambulance first. It's going to need to start here. So I'm gonna bring it over, get it to a spot. So now we can start it here. And I'm even gonna angle this a little bit less because the angle is a bit steep for that. It doesn't matter if it's sitting on the tree because it doesn't matter where we're not gonna see it, it's off screen. I also am not gonna include it before here because I don't want it to be on screen when I'm not in that spot, right? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put our position down. We're only gonna do position first. Eventually I'll do scale, and then I'll do position to make it look normal, then I'll do scale to make it look normal, and then I'll add whatever way it's supposed to be turning to make it look actually like a thing that's doing a thing, okay? So the reason is that you wanna get it to feel natural each step of the way. Otherwise you want to have one firm solidified and then you can edit the other one to be nicer and then edit the other to be nicer. If you try to do them all at the same time, you'll just have a confusing mess and it'll mess you up. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Okay, so.
Last chance.
Okay, so the ambulance needs to start, we're going to be in about this spot.
Last chance.
Second, I'm just going to find its ending spot. So its start and its end.
Last chance.
Okay, so it's not going to want to come on until like there.
Ambulance.
So it goes by on the ambulance. And by the time that phrase is finished, it's off screen or close to it. So let's see what that starting and ending point is going to look like. Getting the audio so I can hear it.
Ambulance.
So on that bump up, that's when we're going to start moving again. So the ambulance will be off screen by that point, but it'll also be done with by that point. So basically we're going to move it to where we want it. Okay, and then I'm going to change its size. I'm going to make it bigger so it feels like I got closer to the screen. Oh, actually, wait. I did not mean to do that yet. Sorry. We're at 200. We need to mark it first. So first I want to get it to where it's going to go, which it just needs to basically get off of this screen with enough room that the doctor who's there can get off as well. Then we're gonna adjust the scale. So I'm gonna go back to the first keyframe. I'm gonna set my scale where it is. Then I'm gonna go back to the last keyframe and set it to what I want it to be, which is going to be close to probably, let's figure out, let's see what that looks like. That's a pretty good size, but I want it to be a little bit bigger as it's going. So if this is the ending place, that's fine. So now I just want to place it off screen. I do want to make sure I leave enough room for the doctor who's going to be attached to get off screen as well. So this is going to look like, and I'm just going to go to the main composition just to see what it looks like in time with the composition.
Last chance.
So last chance, we see the guys moving. Gonna have to load it, so it's gonna take a second. Any questions or anything while it's loading? That's a really good idea. No, don't hit that person. Crunch. It's gonna be an issue in a minute, isn't it? Scott ran over. This is why layers are important, and I can't do this on this layer. I have to do it on the other layer. But I like what the ambulance is doing. Let's watch it again. Other than hitting the character.
Last chance. Ambulance.
It's a little fast, right?
It's
See what we can do to adjust that.
last chance. Ambulance.
Okay, so going a little fast, so we can actually just make it go a little bit longer and get it off screen. And then also for the starting place, I want to make it, I'm going to go a little bit higher up so it feels like it's running on a little bit higher of a path. And maybe it'll avoid that character. If it doesn't avoid the character, I just put the layer below, and then that will show us what it's going to look like when it runs by. So
Last chance.
So real quick, just to do it before I end up needing to worry about it later, I'm just going to go down, find the still biker, which was above, still biker here. So now it'll run underneath as it goes by. So let's see what that looks like. Or no, it's the waving. Is that still biker?
Ambulance.
Yep. So it'll just go behind as opposed to actually running over the other character. And let's see what that timing looks like. Cool.
Ambulance.
It's a little. What don't I like about it? Maybe it needs to start a little sooner to slow it down a bit. Given how
Chance.
that's rolling. Let's actually start a little bit larger, and so it doesn't feel like it's getting so insane, so much larger. So maybe if we go up to 300 to start, go up a little higher. Okay, then now it's what?
Last chance.
I feel like that's going to be better.
Last chance. Ambulance.
I think what I want to do is like here, I'm going to have it turn. So we're going to change the rotation, and I take this and I want to move this upwards a bit. So the rotation now takes us to driving more straight forward. Oh, not like that. Not too far. Great. So then let's see if that's so.
And last chance.
I don't hate this. Kind of straightens out, starts to go out. Yeah. I think that's going to be better.
Last chance. Ambulance.
Great. So what that means is now we're going to go in and set up the doctor. So the doctor is going to be, I'm just going to go ahead and do these three. This is going to be a good example of putting in an additional composition. Now I want this on the other underside of the ambulance because I want the doctor's arm to be attached, holding on to the ambulance, but I want to make sure that we're not, that it doesn't look like it's on top of it, because that's not how you'd hold it. So what I want to do is I'm going to set the doctor to the size that I want. And basically the placement. So if we're here and I want for the doctor, let's see, where's my anchor? If I hit A, it gives me my anchor point. So I want to make sure, where are we looking? Oh, there we go. Okay, so my anchor is right on his hand, so that's good. And so it basically looks like he's holding on to the back of it, right? So what I want to do is I want to take the doctor and the scarf, and I want to put this all into a composition. So I'm going to pre-compose this. But actually first, I'll make the action first so that you can see it. So real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the scarf action. So what that means is I'm going to bring the scarf over to where it would be. Okay, so that's kind of exactly where it's supposed to be in its actual layout. And then the other one we'll put on top of the doctor. So it's up here. There we go. And that looks pretty much like it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a wiggle of rotation, and I'm going to add this to the top scarf, and I'm going to add this to the bottom scarf. And so basically what I want to do is I'm going to do them slightly different so it feels a little more organic, but I'm going to play this in real time and see what happens. Yeah, it's fine. It'll play the audio.
Ambulance.
So let's see. So we want to just see if this looks realistically like a scarf waving in the wind kind of thing. So actually I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this. I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to put it back here. So it's wiggling from that point, and now it'll look a little more hopefully like it's around his neck, as like a loop around, as opposed to like that one part's being weird and waving weirdly. So just to make this even a little better, I'm going to come in and I'm going to make the wiggle. Let's do 40 on one of them and 30 on the other, and I'll make this one's wave 2 as opposed to 1. So we'll see what that does. Actually, let's keep that at 1. That's going way too fast now. And these wiggles will be a little organic. They'll kind of, it won't hit and just back and forth. Right now it's running 40 degrees in a wiggle speed of 1. So you amp the wiggle speed up, it'll go faster. You slow it down, it'll go slower. The rotation, the amount is affected also by, so if wiggle amount of 40 is 40 degrees that it'll wiggle. And it'll play inside that range. So it won't always hit the edges and it won't always be consistent, but it'll kind of play in there and look more organic and natural. So you can change those numbers, you can change them in time. So like when the bus starts and drives away in the next scene, I wiggle the bus for a second and then I turn it off and then it drives away. So it feels like, and I'll have a sound effect of to start it. So let's see how this looks. Is this natural-ish?
Ambulance.
Right, that's kind of cool. So what I want to do is I want to attach this whole thing as one unit to the van, to the ambulance. I don't want to attach and make everything I don't want to try to keep the scarf on his neck the whole time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-compose this as I'm going to call it Doctor Waving. Beautiful. And so instead of holding on, or instead of like just being in the picture in the background, it's going to actually be waving in it. Where are we? Background first poem. Oh, right. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off so that we're no longer just using the eyeball and seeing the one thing. And then where are we at with the ambulance? Right over here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to line up the doctor where I want the ambulance to line up with that character. I'm going to rotate the actual doctor so that it makes more sense as if the character were hanging. Oh, okay. So my anchor is over here now. So even though, because I made this a composition, it put its anchor at its center point. So I need to change the anchor point so that it's on the doctor's hand again. So I'm going to do that. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just move the anchor point over to where I want it, where I want the doctor to wave from, to be holding on from, I should say. And then I will move the anchor point, which will just move the doctor to where it needs to go. Down. Yark. Great. And now it's going to wiggle from that point. So it doesn't have a wiggle on it yet. I do want to go ahead and rotate this so that it's a little more up, but you can see the rotation will be happening on that frame, right? So now I'm going to do a wiggle rotation on this composition. So it's not a rotation on the actual layer, it's a rotation on the actual composition. So the whole thing rotates at the same time. Sorry. So find that point where it lines up. Notice how the doctor is just going to be there. But then what I'm going to do, let's see if this works. It's worked before, so let's see if it does. So if we can link layers to other layers. So if a layer has altering scale, any of the normal transform properties, if I take the doctor and I grab this parent, the parent whip is what it's called, but I drag this over to the ambulance layer, now it will take its movement. So if it scales, it will scale. If it moves, it will move. So I could do this with the scarf, but basically, like, I like the idea of having the scarf as its own thing so that when I wiggle the doctor, the scarf doesn't try to wiggle on its own either. So what should happen is now it's linked and that character will follow the movement of the ambulance. So what that should look like, oh, sorry, did that accidentally, just picked the wrong thing. Now I'm going to jump into the main composition just to see what this looks like. So here we go.
Last chance.
Give it a sec. Any questions or anything while it's loading? All of the color coding that you see in the bar, some of it happens naturally, like when you make a composition, it makes it tan. All of my main moving compositions, I make purple. Anything that's just kind of a still PNG, I make blue. Anything that's red is usually a text layer, but in this case, it's identifying a transition layer. So the white solid that's transitioning, or the whatever's happening with whatever. I may move the van closer to that individual so that it doesn't, I want it to be known that they're not hitting that person. So I might have to figure a way, and I'm gonna probably have to figure a way to make sure it doesn't look like the doctor's kicking that person in the head either. But let's let this go ahead and do its thing. So we'll have the people carrying the stretchers behind where the doctor currently is as it pans over to that. And then once the ambulance passes, they'll be gone. So it looks like they're getting picked up by the ambulance and taken off. Now, the doctor's rotation will even change because of the way it's matched up. As the van turns its angle to move, as it flattens out and goes off, the doctor will adjust with it. Also realize that the doctor has a wiggle on it currently. So basically it's also doing its own rotation around that hand while moving in line with whatever the ambulance is doing. So it's like doing this, and then like you add to it by moving the whole thing. All right, here we go.
Last chance. Ambulance.
So I might amp up the wiggle. I'm probably gonna make it up a little higher, and I also may make it the doctor smaller because right now the doctor is much bigger than the actual ambulance, which for some reason in my head I didn't make sense of. So I'll have to fix that. Any questions about that? I think that's pretty good description of where we're going. It is 3:20, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. I'm gonna stop share.